Welcome back to Control Alt Lead, the podcast from computing where we talk to IT leaders about what's moving in the market. This week, I'm talking to Jeremy Cooper, head of IT at Apollo Therapeutics, about burnout. Now, burnout is a very serious topic. It's linked to depression and stress, and it affects people in the IT industry more than pretty much any other. It can be caused by neglect, by bad habits, by overwork, or, ironically enough, by underwork, a feeling of not being challenged enough in your job. It normally manifests as a feeling of disconnection from life and from work, and untreated, it can be really serious. As I say, it does manifest in IT pros more than any other, and Jeremy and I talk about why and what you can do to treat burnout in yourself and in others in the podcast. Enjoy. Jeremy, thanks so much for joining us today. We're talking about burnout. This is something that comes up a lot in the IT industry, but why is it such an issue?
I probably get told off for the way I frame this, and I apologise that I'm going to talk very broadly, and I'm very aware that there are lots of different types of individuals. We're all very different, but from spending a long time in IT and working with a lot of teams, there's a lot of traits in people that are attracted to IT. So quite often we're perfectionists, we're problem solvers. We like to provide a good level of service. So the challenge I always see is when you're trying to be perfect with an IT system, you never will be, because you'll spend too much time and energy, but you're always trying to work out why did that not work. And I've had problems in the past where I've done a fantastic project, but I've always sort of beaten myself up on the little bit that I couldn't do or I didn't get right. So I think there's a lot of traits around that, and the expectation on IT's transformed massively. There's always been high pressure in IT, but if you think every company now is a tech company, the one that I always like to use is like Tesco's. So Tesco's is a grocery store, but it's a tech company because it's got a hugely complex supply chain. It's got mobile phone apps. You can get food delivered to your house. You can go pick it up. When you walk in the store, you can work out where the grapefruits are, which aisle they're on, and all that sort of side. That if the technology stopped working at Tesco's probably shuts its doors until they've been fixed. Same with all the tills and everything like that. So there's this incredible pressure, but the massive boom in technology as well means that everyone uses it. Everyone thinks that IT is really easy. Whether it's my mum asking me why I don't know how to do a certain Excel macro or something, and assumes we should know everything. But if you think you can go get a free Gmail account, Hotmail account, or whatever it is in a couple of minutes, and it's just there, and it's got amazing availability. Apps are really easy. So why is our enterprise IT not so simple? Why is it not so cheap? Why is it not so fast? So I think the pressure on people to keep that service going is incredible. So that pressure never lets up. And I think probably the last bit is just the rate of change as well. We never really feel like we're ever very good at our job. So someone gets really good at, I don't know, Microsoft Exchange, and then Microsoft Cloud platforms come along, and suddenly they don't actually know what they're doing anymore. So they've got to learn it again. And then the version 3 comes out, and the widgets change and they move around. So you never really have that sense of stability, because either the company moves to different software, the platforms move, or the expectations, or it's just that continuous churn. You never really feel like you know enough. And I think that's the bit that I've always struggled with. And I think sort of talking to people, that's that level of pressure is sort of unprecedented. It's a bit like in football when you've got the striker doesn't get told off for missing the shot as much as the goalie gets told off for letting the goal in. And IT is a bit like the goalie. They very rarely get told good save. They generally get told, why did you miss that one?
Yeah. I'm still just reeling here that your mum's asking you about Excel workbook macros. Mine just asked me to which cable goes into the TV.
I also get that because it's all technology. I did once get asked by my dad if I could come fix his keyboard, and I asked why, and he said because it keeps putting full stops when I type my password, and I'm like, no, we're done here. I don't know how to explain that. But yeah, it's slightly stressful anyway in the industry.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think we can all agree it's a pretty stressful industry. You said there that the pace of change is like not conducive. Is it contributing toward people having a bit of imposter syndrome?
Oh, absolutely. That feeling of never being good enough because someone asks you a question and you don't know the answer and you feel like you should know the answer, either because you work in IT or because it's something you've worked on for such a long period of time. But technology is so big and broad, you can't be expected to know it all. So I think there's that. But also, I don't know, there's lots of people that progress really fast in their career. I did, and I was very fortunate that I worked really hard, but then there was good opportunities that come up. And it's really easy to look on LinkedIn or go to a computing event or something and see someone on stage that looks absolute top of their game, and they're talking about these incredible things that they've done and what their team's doing, and you sort of sit there and think, oh, I haven't done that. I wouldn't even know where to start with that. But you never see the here's how many near misses they had, or here's how much pressure there was on that team. So yeah, it's very easy to see that this team put generative AI in 2 months at such and such a company without really knowing whether it actually worked or what the carnage was on the way through or what the pressure on the team was to get it done.
Um, Now you've got some personal experience with burnout. Let's talk about that a bit.
Yeah.
What happened to you? What were your experiences with it?
Um, and I've always had this sort of drive to succeed, and I never really wanted to slow down or admit I had a problem. But and there's probably a good bit of ego in it as well because people. So when I was in one of my roles, I was traveling around the world extensively. I was in business class. I had a big team under me, and what people didn't know was I was struggling with burnout, and my burnout had brought on a lot of anxiety. So I didn't like leaving the house. So my anxiety was around feeling like I needed to go to the bathroom. So what people used to see was Sunday morning, a S-Class Mercedes pulls up, chauffeur gets out, I get in the car, I go down to Heathrow, through the sort of secret lane at Virgin, on through the lounge, and I'm sat on the plane. And this whole time I was in a cold sweat because as we're going down, I'm sort of worried about like traffic. I'm worried about would we get to the airport? And then one of the worst bits is like fasten seatbelt signs. So they come on, bathrooms are locked, and you can't do it. And I spent literally years like this, and it was the level of pressure that I put under myself. And I admit a lot of this is me because I didn't talk to people about it, but I was kind of a shell of a person. So I was very much like going through the motions. On the outside, I was still sort of successful. I was still progressing, but I was just having to bury myself continuously just to keep up with the expectation I had on myself. And I never wanted to tell my boss that I was struggling because I was worried that I'd either get fired or I wouldn't get any cool jobs, or all these other things that are probably completely illogical. Because if I'd told my boss, they probably would have helped me with it. Um, but yeah, you just don't want to show fear. And it took me to kind of a breaking point where I sent my wife a text message from the toilet on a Virgin plane just before we were about to take off, saying I can't go on like this. Sent her like a clarifier that I wasn't going to do something stupid at 38,000 feet, but I just needed help. And I then went and spoke to the NHS and got therapy around anxiety, and then sort of talked about burnout and other bits, and absolutely transformed me. But the interesting bit is I became more productive off the back of it as well, because it stopped being this massive thing around my neck that I was trying to hide and get away from, and actually had to open up about it, and then worked out some tools for how to be better.
Hmm. So how, having gone through the experience of stress and anxiety and burnout, do you think you're better at spotting it within your team?
Um, yes, I think so. It is hard because the biggest challenge is people want to hide stuff. So that whenever you're struggling, you don't really want to tell anyone, especially your boss, if you're having troubles. But the bits that I always used to spot were when there was kind of a change of engagement in people. So some people are generally just a disengaged person because they don't like their job. But the really good people that I saw would start to struggle, would start to disengage in meetings. So often they were like very talkative. They would, challenge the status quo. They'd have a lot of inputs, and then they'd start to be in this sort of adherence mode. So yeah, they weren't pushing back as much. They were kind of just agreeing with stuff, probably interacting with people a lot less. So there was like this kind of, and it sort of resonates with how I felt. I always felt kind of disengaged, and I felt a very flat mood. So you didn't kind of have peaks and troughs, and you'd sort of back yourself away for certain periods. So you'd see, like after a project, someone would really pull back, and you wouldn't hear a lot from them. So a lot of it's kind of when you're talking to someone, how are they kind of responding? Are they changing how they are, like positively, negatively? If there's some flare ups and bits like that, it's just looking at those signs about how's this different, and how do we have a chat about it?
Okay, so say that you've identified that you've got someone that you know is like a high performer, and you've identified that they are stressed or they're burned out. How do you then go about helping them as a leader?
And it's very hard to get someone to admit it that they're struggling. So I always think, and not just on the individual, because if you target sounds a bad word because you're trying to do it in a positive way. But if you just sort of try and spot fix the person, it either looks really obvious or you're just not helping the group. So I always think with the team, it's around helping give them air cover. So how can I reduce some of the pressure that's coming down to them? And quite often it's you as the leader. So maybe you're setting too higher expectation. Maybe you're committing to too many projects. So it's really how can you sort of talk up and out about the team. So the things they're doing, the level of work they're doing, why they can't take as much things on. And I think reward is a really important thing that we don't do enough. Now, this doesn't have to be monetary. Obviously, that helps, but just calling people out that this person did a really good job today, because quite often you feel like I'm doing all this stuff and it's either not getting recognized or I'm not doing a good job. So actually, someone saying, "Do you know what? That presentation you did last week was spot on. The board really liked it," or this bit of technology went through seamlessly. Because it's those little reminders to people that what they're doing is worthwhile, what they're adding value. And I think like just open up to people about how you've either struggled or the pressure you're under, I think helps the team do the same. So if you explain the fact that we're getting a lot of pressure from this group, here's some little tips about how I cope with it, I think it humanizes it a little bit more. So as well, it's like what are the little productivity things that you could pass down to your team that would help them. I always like the idea of like working out how people can delegate work out, but just being careful with like the second step of delegation, because if I've got an employee, let's say called Paul, and Paul's really struggling, and I help Paul delegate all his work to someone else, well, that person's just coming along the chain. So it's like, maybe I need to take some stuff back. Maybe they need to delegate some stuff out, but then just making sure those like second step delegations getting done. We're getting rid of all the stuff like sort of ruthless prioritization. What's going to impact them? Because I think taking the work away from someone will make them feel probably more worried about their situation than giving them more valuable work.
Great point. Now, okay, so we've talked about teams, but as an IT leader, there's going to be people listening to this who have experienced this in the past, who maybe are experiencing it now. How do you deal with stress as a leader? I know that you've been to speak to the NHS, a process that is great but notoriously slow. What else have you done, or what do you do now to deal with it?
There's probably my at work bit and my out of work. So the at work piece is just be ruthless on that prioritization. So you really work out. I love the Eisenhower matrix. So what's the do, delegate, defer, delete. There's a lot of stuff we kind of do that we think's important, but it's not. Like creating a set of slides that no one ever reads, or you create 1,000 slides and like 3 would have done it. So working out those bits. What do I actually need to do to be successful? What's going to move the company forward? What's going to move my team forward? What's going to enable us to hit our goals, whether or like reduce risk? There's so much noise that you can start to cut out when you are that sort of level of ruthless. And also, I think it's really important to improve your network and your community that you're working with. It gives you the opportunity to talk to people around here's the challenges we're having, and hearing other inputs into it, or sometimes just hearing that other people have the same problems. And there's something slightly therapeutic about hearing that other people are in the same boat as you, even if everyone's struggling. But often you'll have a little idea, someone will give you that little idea that you can go away, but someone from outside the organization, it's a lot cleaner, and you can have that conversation. And then outside of work, and this is probably the far more important bit, is have a life. So when I was really going at my career, so I was progressing sort of every couple of years, new roles, new responsibilities, or new people. Work became like the most important thing to me, and I was checking my emails first thing in the morning. I was checking them last thing at night. My mum said to me one Christmas, what do you want? Because you don't really do anything, and they're like cut deep. I'm surprised she didn't give me a book about Excel macros, but it made me realise that I'd given up on hobbies that I'd loved. Whether it was like rugby, and people give up playing the guitar because they're too busy. So it's find something as a purpose outside of work, something that you love to do, that you can geek out on, that you can delve into. Because when I was playing rugby, and now I do CrossFit, I can't think about work while I'm doing it, because I'll end up getting injured or I'll struggle. Or
your LinkedIn famously says average CrossFitter.
Yes.
Okay, so that's great advice. The other question I probably going to have, combat burnout. If someone, it's going to take them time, so they need something that they can do on the day. What can they start doing? Anything?
It's probably control your controllables. So what are the things that you can do to improve your work? So I always think, if you've got too much work on, what are the 2 to 3 most important things you need to do? So really break down and do those, and you'll be surprised that you'll feel more content at the end of the day, because you've achieved 2 of the big things that you needed to get over the line. You may not have done a lot of the like busy work and the little things, but they're not going to move you forward. So if you spent a day and you got your email box down really low, you'll be like, yay, great, but you didn't feel like you achieved anything. But actually, if you got that presentation done that you've been like putting off for ages, you'll have a much greater sense of achievement. And then I think I really love something called Pomodoros. So this is the idea of doing kind of 25 minutes intense work with a 5-minute rest at the end, and repeating those cycles. And it's fantastic for your mindset, because you do deep focus, but your mind, your little monkey mind at the end, knows that you're having a little break at the end of it, and then it can check social media, and it can do these other things, and getting into a regular cadence of kind of work rest is really powerful, to just kind of let the mind sort of spread a little bit. And that kind of goes to your weekends of stop looking at your phone, turn off your notifications, although actually turn off your notifications during the week as well. If you need to check your emails every time one comes through, you need to consider how you're managing things. So just stop making your life quite so responsive and more sort of planned and methodical. Couple of really weird ones that I tell people, and it sounds quite shocking or sort of surprising, is firstly, start saving money. Now, yeah, it's a weird one, but most people that are struggling with kind of burnout, anxiety, and bits, one of their fears is that they're going to get fired because they're not doing a very good job. Now, if you have no savings at all in the bank, that becomes even more scary because if you got fired, you have nothing and you need to drastically find a job. If you had 6 months savings or the ability to sort of fund your lifestyle for 6 months, it takes away a lot of that pressure. And then it takes away the certain level of like fear that sits in the back of your head that's kind of eating away at you. And then the other one, I mentioned this to you the other week, is about sleep. When we're all really busy, we're all staring at our phones, first thing in the morning, late at night, we're going to bed late, we're probably drinking too much, eating badly, and all this stuff. But if you've ever had kids, you know what it feels like to be sleep deprived, and you know what a negative impact it has on your mood, what a negative impact it has on your performance at work. So actually, not drinking caffeine in the afternoon, not staring at your phone till 2 minutes before you go to bed, going to bed at a proper time, waking up, like not doing, there's so many things you can do to improve the quality of your sleep, but just getting a little bit of extra time for your sleep has probably the biggest change in your mood and your performance and all these other areas of your life that will then start to take the edge off. When the pressure does come on, you're at least fighting fit and ready to go rather than already on the back foot and tired.
Brilliant. That's excellent. So what you've basically advised for IT leaders is do sprints and use technology. So I think a lot of them are going to be like, brilliant, sorted. I know how to do this.
Yeah. I mean, I was once talking about the idea of like almost agile your life. So if you looked at all the different areas that you wanted to improve or the challenges you've got, if you try to do everything at once, you will fail. Like the same thing as if you try to do an amazing crash diet, you will probably fail because all you're eating is cabbage and drinking like goji berries or something, and your adherence will be terrible. But actually, if you looked at here's all the things that I'm struggling with, here's all the areas that I'd like to improve, and like just change one thing. So that whole sprint methodology, like, do you know what? For the next 2 weeks, I'm just going to start to go to bed a little bit earlier. And then maybe after that, you start thinking, do you know what? I should walk a little bit more. Or like adding in, this hobby that I want to add in a little bit of reading, or I want to plan my day in the morning for the 3 things that I want to work on today. Don't do them all because it will overwhelm you. But if you sat there and were like, I'm going to have a really conscious effort to, just plan my days. So then you walk into the office feeling a little bit more planned, and you could do it 5 o'clock the night before. So just before you shut your laptop, just be like, right, tomorrow, here's what my meetings are like. Do I need to cancel, move any? What do I want to achieve? And just maybe make a note of it. And then you walk into the next day with a plan, and that's incredibly powerful to take that little step forward. And it feels like nothing. It's like 5 minutes work. But yeah, big change.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jeremy, for joining me today.
Pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Control Alt Lead. Next time, I'll be talking to David Green, the head of innovation at the Blenheim Estate in Oxfordshire, about how and why he set up a massive centre network for a heritage site covering 12,000 acres. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you want to know more, you can always visit computing.co.uk for more interviews, research, and analysis. See you next time.